Let's take a look at a new bait called the Pond Parasite. This is a creature bait, so it's not really made to imitate anything specifically, but boy, does it look fishy. So it can really imitate anything from a crayfish to a small like salamander or lizard or a big insect. Could be, a small bait fish, depending on the color. It really is just designed to get that fish's attention. Could be a submerged frog swimming through the water. But there are a lot of cool little features in this little bait. It's 2.5 inches long, so it's the perfect BFS size. It's a very light bait too, so it can be easily fished on an ultralight. This tail is pretty much all ribbing, so there's a lot of water kind of moving action, but not a lot of denseness to it. So it's still a really light bait, and has a little tickle tail there on the back, and boy, does that little thing dance. This whole tail actually really dances and moves, but that little tickle tail there really gives this bait a lot of action. Then you have these little rearward facing legs. These things will also kind of dance and kick, especially when you stop the bait. These legs will kind of flail forward since they're so thin, have little kind of mini little paddle tails on them as well. So when you move the bait, they'll kind of flick and dance when you're moving the bait quick. Has all these little forward facing little legs, and also these other forward facing little paddles. So when you're working this bait hard with an aggressive retrieve, these will actually move, kind of like a wacky rig would. This plastic is nice and soft, so as you work that bait hard, give it some good jerks, these legs will add just a little bit of action to your bait. And then the whole head of the bait here has some kind of smaller ribs, but it's solid. So this is going to be kind of your working area for rigging the bait. You want to be careful not to rig this bait too far down in this tail, because this tail is really thin. And also, the farther you go into that tail, the less movement that you'll get in your bait too. So you want to kind of keep all your rigging surface area to this front half of this a solid bait. And there are a lot of different ways you can rig it. Of course, I'll bring out a few here for you, just kind of show you. This is a just plain jig head. This is the easiest and most common way a lot of guys will fish it. It's just on a plain jig head. You could use a weedless jig head. You could use a tungsten jig head. You can even fish this weightless too. This is a number 4 hook on this jig head. You could go up to a 2. You're going to start to creep in towards that tail. A 2 is about as big as I would go. 4s on this bait seem to fit this pretty well. And you can fish it in a lot of different heavinesses. Everything from 1/32 up to 3/32, 1/16, 1/8. I'd say 1/8 is kind of, up there towards the top end of how heavy you want to go. If you're fishing deeper water and you want to keep this thing just welded to the bottom, you could go up to a 1/4, but you're going to have a hard time finding hooks probably small enough on a 1/4 ounce jig. So 1/8 ounce and smaller is where you're going to get kind of the right hook size in that 2 to 4 range. And yeah, really easy way to work this bait. You can fish it just on open water, jigging it back, retrieving it, or you can work it on the bottom. Get a lot of action out of this little floppy tail on this guy. Let's see, another way is a Cheb Rig. You just have a little tungsten Cheb weight there, and we've got a Ryugi Hobbit wide gap hook there, and I think this one is a size 2, so it does reach right back there to the tail. That's about as big as you'd want to go. I do have it on a 4 here, so that one fits much better kind of into the meat of the body there. But Cheb weight's another easy way to fish this. You just really just toss it out there, let it sink to the bottom, and you're just going to roll this and let this Cheb weight just kind of smack around on the rocks in the bottom. Definitely want to fish it on an EWG hook, that way you don't get hung up. And let's see, next would be a micro Jika Rig. This one is on a size 4, so we got plenty of meat there. We're not creeping into the tail. This is another rig that is supposed to be fished on or near the bottom. Kind of keeps your bait just hovering there off the bottom, an inch or two. Our baits are not salted, not scented, so they're neutrally buoyant, which means you'll get that perfect horizontal presentation. When this bait's in the water, it'll just sit there perfectly horizontal, just like a natural hovering bug or something would do. And then that brings us to the drop shot. Same thing. You want to fish it on a 2 or a 4. This one is the bigger 2 here, a little bit on the big side, but a 4 would be just fine. This company is a decoy hook. I believe they have a size 3, so that's another good size for this. This is, I think, their worm 10 hook, drop shot hook, small little tungsten weight, and just get that to hover off the bottom a few inches and get that perfect horizontal presentation. This thing is so twitchy, you barely have to move this bait. A lot of guys overwork their drop shots. This bait has such a little twitchy tail that any little bump to that drop shot weight on the bottom or any pull, it's just going to make this little guy dance. So you don't need to do much on drop shot. Throw it out there, small light twitches, and really just pulling up slack and hopping it along the bottom. That's all you have to do with this guy. And let's see, that brings up kind of another new popular rig, and that's the free rig. Seen a few of you guys mention this in the comments. Basically, you slide on a tungsten weight and you let your EWG hook and your bait just hang off the bottom. And basically, as you cast this guy out here, the weight will sink faster than the bait. And then you can pull up the slack and actually pull the bait towards the bottom and then pop the weight up off the bottom again and just repeat the process. And you'll kind of get this hovering yo-yo effect. Since our baits are not salted, they'll want to, I won't say float more, but they'll be neutrally buoyant. They won't want to race to the bottom. So as that weight races to the bottom, this bait will kind of hover up in the water column for a few seconds as you pull up that slack, just making the bait look a lot more natural than if it just simply raced to the bottom. So yeah, that's a kind of a newer trend that a lot of guys are fishing, but really any kind of bottom style, I would say, fishing technique is really good for this bait, just because it is kind of a creature bait. That does not mean that you cannot fish this bait weightless. This does fish very well weightless. Maybe use a little bit heavier wire gauge hook just to help this break the water surface tension. A lot of times with these ribs, you got to give it a little bit of a twitch or a tug if it wants to sit on the water surface tension to kind of get it to break free. And then this thing will just kind of hover and sit right in front of those fish's faces when you fish it weightless. And then when you do impart movement on it, you'll get that added kind of, I'll say, wacky action, but that reverse action of all these little legs. So really, really cool bait, something that's very different. You don't see many companies with something like this. So very, very neat little bait from us here at Moondog Bait Co. We're excited about this one. And you can find them on our website, moondogbaitco.com.